Alrighty, my microphone is on, you can hear me, and I am recording my screen. Let's just make sure that you can see things right. Yay! Maybe this will be the first devlog that will actually work, and not me having like no audio from me and no video. So, what am I doing? And did the cat destroy anything else? I'm gonna assume no because we're on the screen still. Oh goodness, we need to make it. Well, I'm on my up. Static. No, we gotta get all of these guys too, right? Because these are all like stairs. This room's gonna be a little bit exciting. Is what am I gonna do there? I don't know. Yeah, basically what I'm doing is I am making these all navigation static so that the enemies can walk on them and find you with them. Yeah. Or bam bam. Hopefully this room's gonna have to be a little bit exciting too. Ooh. Don't know what I'm doing here, but it's something I'm going to have to test. Okay, probably could have done this off camera, but I just like, I don't know. I'm lazy. I'm recording. Because why the heck not? Yeah, but this is basically a I don't know what else to say right now, so I guess I don't need to say anything. Doo-doo-doo-doo. Okay, I thought I had done something goofy. This guy. Okay, let's, I guess, do some testing. Make sure that this all worked out, because there's this is one moment, I'll be right back. Oh crap, I didn't actually push the pause button. Well, I wasn't gone that long anyways. I feel like this pause button is like sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Anyways, this here, not the canvas. This is Medusa. If you look at this object here, you will die. And she follows you. Let's see. We need to do some experimentation. Put this guy. You know what? Let's create a new scene. some assets. So, not all the weird rooms. Start with the snake room. Bam. And the pork room isn't actually that. Not really worried about. And 40. Let's find any of them. So full spam. Yay. Well, I guess B1. The axis is literally right there. Oh, this is B0, not base B0. Not B0, B1. And okay, come in. The other room is gonna be like funky. There's gonna be the pit. I mean, this does not need to be 10, 10, 20. Well, I think this is good. Let's add let's go to the other scenes. So say actually it would be easier to just whole thing, stick it right here, and drag the player and Medusa over. Instead of trying to figure out, oh, this breaks because there's no nodes, or oh, this breaks because there's not a right camera, or oh, I can create the player object correctly, or whatever. Bam, bam, bam. Bam, bam. So I need to go, I'm at the south, I need to go Yes, construct and call to there. Can you let me move this guy, please? It's static. Reduce it down a little bit. Okay, let's reduce it down a lot more. Yeah. Player is here. So you were really bad at following it. I guess I'll put it into context of what producer was doing before. Hopefully it still works. Maybe I broke something somehow? Yeah, she follows. Not really that bad right now because I have to look way up to die, but so yeah. I'm pushing there. Let's think if I can bring all this guy. Yeah, I looked here. It would be like working, but I don't know though. Well, that's odd. What is me pausing to do that? Eh? It looks like it's just aiming to let me just that. Yeah. I'm more like a different first player. Still happen? Yeah. I'm very confused. Piano puzzle sword is broken. I do not care. Let's take a look at the main camera. Oh, is it just bringing me... It might just be bringing me back to the nearest, yes. I died. Oop. So this is controlling. Really confusing, too. You should have like a different ground color for all this stuff. Not baked, but one of these areas that you want a lot of the jump. Object. I don't know what's different about it. If I ran all of these things, bam, bam, get closer, pick again. Okay, so she is chasing me. Jump fall down through here, yeah. Hurry up before. Okay. It's baked. I'm going to assume it's baked. Here's Medusa. Doo-doo-doo. You suck. Unity. How to connect Nash. Okay. How do I want to go into let's just add rooms base B1. Yeah. Okay then, got this. We got the snake room. Oh, okay. So we're getting somewhere. So we think clear. Let's add the. Let's try out the pit. Let's do a little bit of this. Okay. I'm gonna be back in just a moment. Can I? Alrighty, I'm back. I don't remember what I was doing. I was doing these things. Make them jump. I was going to the... Okay, so it's gonna be Pam, plane 2, 2, 3, 2, 1. Each of them is gonna be themselves. And this plane is not bad. Oh gosh. It's been bungled. Okay, the real question is, can you bake it at runtime? I should figure that out. But I can go like parkour. Okay. Okay. So you just watch me read this. I don't... Okay. I feel like this opens more questions than it does answers. Um, how do I do this automatically? Didn't know that I did a level. Okay. Nice. Move to a destination. Click by mouth. This you can just oh boy, animation. I do not know how to do animation very well with Unity. So, okay. Review. Gosh, I do not remember. Hmm. It is. Spell the status bar, add package by name. I don't know where the status bar is. Status bar is in private settings, package memories. Okay, that's disappointing. Okay. Guess we'll take a look at, see if there's anything immediately different. Nope. Okay. Okay, so there's more things here. Okay, so what I'm thinking is that I find out how to make it bake the whole thing at fun time. Please say something. This is a package items. I can do something like that. And then when it's baked, using all of the... Yeah, so... some event will happen that will trigger the Medusa spawning or whatever other monsters I end up going with. Happen, it's going to... All the planes or everything that you can walk on is going to go up and it's going to be like, add me to the mesh, and it's going to go, okay, we got all these different items, we are going to bake with all of them. And hopefully that will work. Yeah. I guess team bake nav mesh. Okay. Guess I'm watching a tutorial. I hate watching tutorials, I'm not gonna lie.
In this video, you'll learn how to create simple pathfinding using Unity's Nav Mesh features. At the end, we'll have a working pathfinding system where the player can click anywhere on the level and the character will then find the shortest path there. To do that, we'll be baking a navigation mesh using the
This
Nav
is
Mesh
a
surface component.
reaction
This allows us
channel
to
now.
define walkable surfaces for our agent. We'll then write a script to control a Nav Mesh agent along the surface. Also, this video is sponsored by Unity. Alright, let's get started. So as you can see, I've set up this simple example scene. In here, we have a player, that's the green cylinder here, as well as a tiny level. The level consists of a ground cube, and on top of that, some walls. And that's pretty much it. Now, the improved high-level nav mesh components are available now. As you can see, I've included them in my project here. You can use the link in the description to get both the nav mesh components as well as this example scene. Alright, so the first thing that we want to do is bake a nav mesh. This means that we will define what surfaces are walkable for our agent. To do that, let's go to the hierarchy, let's right-click, go create empty, let's reset the transform on this, and let's rename it to nav mesh. Let's then drag it to the top so we can easily see it. So this game object is going to be responsible for baking our nav mesh. To make it do this, let's hit add component, and we'll add in the nav mesh surface component. Here we have a few different settings, but if we just go ahead and hit bake, we can see that right away Unity creates a nav mesh for us. All the blue tinted areas represent surfaces that our agent can walk on, and so we can see that he cleverly avoids all the walls. We can also see that the agent can currently walk on top of some of the walls, and that the nav mesh currently treats our player himself as an obstacle. To avoid this, we edit the include layers. Here we can select what layers we want to include when baking our nav mesh. In our case, we don't want to include our player, so we can go select our player, go to the top right where it says layer and add a new layer, and we'll create a player layer. We'll then select our player and make sure to assign this new layer to him. Then when we go back to our nav mesh, we can simply disable this layer. When we then hit bake, we can see right away our nav mesh simply ignores our player. So now we can easily control what parts of our environment we want to take into consideration when baking a nav mesh. We can also choose whether we want to bake our nav mesh from the render meshes, meaning the actual look of our level, or using physics colliders. Now I don't currently have any colliders in my scene, so if I go ahead and hit bake, we can see that nothing really appears. However, if I go in here and add a collider to the ground, I'm going to add a box collider, and then go back to the nav mesh and hit bake, we can see that this now shows up. But we can simply use the render meshes and rebake that. Finally, we have a setting at the top here called the agent type. And right above this, we have a drawing with some different values. If we go under the agent type, we can open up the agent settings. This is part of the navigation window. You can always bring this up by going window, navigation. Now here we can choose some properties for our agent. And these properties will affect how the nav mesh is built. Right now it's just using some default values for a regular humanoid character. But if we go ahead and hit the plus sign, we can create another one. This one is going to be an ochre. We can increase the radius because he's probably going to be fairly big. We'll set that to 1. I could also imagine him being pretty tall, so we'll set the height to 3. Then we can adjust the step height, which is probably going to depend on the length of his legs. I like to imagine that he has pretty short ones. And finally, we can adjust the max slope, which is how well he can climb angled surfaces. Let's say that he's fairly lazy, so he'll only do about 30 degrees. Now, if we were to go back to the inspector and change the agent type to ogre and hit bake, we can see that our ogre will have a much harder time getting around our maze. In fact, there are plenty of places that he won't be able to get through. I'm just going to change this back to humanoid and rebake. Now, we don't want our walls to be walkable. So to change this, we can go and select our walls, and here we'll add another component called the Nav Mesh modifier. The Nav Mesh modifier allows us to change nav mesh settings for a given object. We could, for example, ignore it from build, which means that if we rebake our nav mesh, it's just going to completely ignore our walls. We could achieve the same effect by simply assigning our walls to a layer. However, we do want our walls to be used, we just don't want them to be walkable. So we'll deselect ignore from build and instead use override area. This allows us to change the area type for this object. If we select this, you can see that we have 3 default area types: walkable, not walkable, and jump. As you've probably guessed, if we select not walkable and regenerate, voila, our player can now only walk on the ground. Finally, we can choose what agents this is going to affect. By default, this is set to all, but we can't be specific. This allows us to create areas of the map that are different for each agent. Say if you're creating an RTS game and you don't want your regular units to pass through fire, but you want your fire elementals to freely walk past it. So affected agents can actually be really useful. Now that we've set up our nav mesh, we're ready to start moving around the player. To do this, we're going to add a component to a player called the Nav Mesh agent. A Nav Mesh agent is a character that can navigate around the mesh. Here we have a bunch of different settings. We'll look into these in a second, but first we want to create a simple script that will control our player. So we'll hit add component and we'll create a script called player controller. Let's hit create an add, and let's double click it to open it up in Visual Studio. Now before we start scripting, let's have a look at how to go about this. So controlling a Nav Mesh agent in Unity is actually really easy. Most of the time we use a simple function called setDestination. This allows us to input some kind of position, and our agent will then automatically find the shortest path there. In our case, we have a level, and on top of that level we have a player. We also have a camera that looks at our level, and we want to be able to click on some part of the level and then have our player automatically move to that location. To do that, we'll look for some kind of mouse input, and when the player presses the mouse, we'll send out a ray to the point where the player pressed. We'll then look for where this ray hit and use a function called get of from the point that we hit. And if we now hit play, we can see that we can click anywhere on our level and our agent will try and find the shortest path there. In fact, we can even click again to change direction while the player is moving. Pretty awesome. We can also configure steering settings under our Nav Mesh agent. Here we can change the speed, let's set that to 8. The angular speed, which means how quickly it rotates, let's set that to 180. The acceleration, which means how quickly it starts moving or changes direction, we're going to set that to 15. And finally, the stopping distance is how close we need to get to the end of our path before the agent stops moving. I'm going to set that to 0.1. If we play now, we should see that the agent moves around a lot quicker, and we now have a working demo. Yay! That's pretty much it for this video. In the next one, we'll dive further into the Nav Mesh system, so make sure to subscribe to get notified once it's out. And that, thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks to the awesome
Series?
in February, and a special thanks to Encode We Trust.
I'm making it dynamic, looks like.
In the previous video, we learned how to set up simple pathfinding in Unity. In this video, we'll go over how we can make our nav mesh dynamic so that it will update to changes in-game. We'll use the obstacle component to easily make moving objects part of our nav mesh. We'll also have a look at generating a nav mesh at runtime in the case that you don't know the layout of your level beforehand. Also, this video is sponsored by Unity. So let's jump right into it. So here's an even more stripped down scene than the previous video. All we have is a ground plane and a player. The player has a nav mesh component that we set up in the previous video. I'm just going to leave all those as is. And now if we play around with these settings. Here we can adjust the radius and height of the agent, as well as the quality of the obstacle avoidance. We can see that by increasing the radius, our agent will now take a greater path around the obstacles. But of course, there is another way. Let's select all the obstacles and enable carve. We'll also make sure to disable carve only stationary. If this is enabled, the obstacle won't carve out a piece of the mesh if it's moving. And since our obstacles are moving all the time, we definitely want to disable this. If we then again select the player and the nav mesh and hit play, we can clearly see that our obstacles are now changing the mesh. And if we press on some point on the map, that our path actually gets calculated around these obstacles. Pretty cool. So that's how we can add obstacles to our game. But since we're editing the nav mesh at runtime, this isn't very performant. It's fine to use for a few objects, but we want to bake as much as possible beforehand. However, sometimes we don't know the full layout of our level before the game starts. This is often the case if you're procedurally generating a level. Luckily, we can easily generate a nav mesh at runtime using this same system. So if we go and open up example 3, this scene is even simpler. All we have in here is a ground, a nav mesh surface, and then I've gone ahead and created this level generator script. What this will do is if we hit play, it's going to generate a random level and place our player somewhere in this level. But of course, our player is unable to move because our agent is not placed on a nav mesh. So we want to make sure that our nav mesh surface is updated after our level is generated. To do that, I'll open up my level generator script. As you can see, I have a bunch of code in here, but mainly what I'm doing is in the start method, I'm calling a function called generate level. This function is down here, and it's basically just going to loop over a grid and determine whether or not we want to spawn a wall for each point on the grid, and we also make sure to spawn in the player. But that's not really important. The main thing that we want to do is make sure that we also update our nav mesh after our level has generated. So under this piece of code is where we want to update our nav mesh. To do this, we first need a reference to our nav mesh surface. And remember, whenever we're dealing with nav mesh through script, we want to go to the top and make sure that we're using unityengine.ai. Then we can go and add a variable, which is going to
Okay. Yeah.
reference our nav mesh surface. So we'll create a public nav mesh surface, and we'll call it surface. Then we can go to the point where we want to update our nav mesh, and all we need to do here is write surface dot build nav mesh.
Public nav mesh surface. Hold on.
And that's it. This is the only function that we need to call in order for the surface to go ahead and rebuild. If we save this, go into Unity, and make sure to drag in our nav mesh surface in the new surface field, we then go to our nav mesh and just hit bake right now. So now it's just an empty nav mesh. And if we then hit play, we can see that the nav mesh perfectly fits our level. And we can now start moving around our agent in this procedurally generated maze. Super.
Okay. Yes. Let's cancel it. Let's add a thingy assets. A0. Let's add a last triggered. Oh, did this not get saved? Save it. Oh, there's an issue, isn't there? Excuse me. I was working. Oh no. Nav mesh surface. Does this not work anymore? What I can do? Nav mesh surface. Nav surface. Well, I'm gonna die. Okay. Is this not automatically including the package? It's just staying here. Can I get rid of this? Because I don't want the cat. Thing is that I do have the package though. And Nav Mesh Surface is a thing. This isn't gonna work. Back to the tutorial. This is not the tutorial. This is not the tutorial. This is where the tutorial is.
And that's it. This is the only Engine dot. And remember, whenever we're dealing with Nav Mesh through script, we want to go to the top and make sure that we're using Unity Engine.ai. Then we can go and add a variable which is going to reference our Nav Mesh surface. So we'll create a public Nav Mesh surface and we'll call it surface. Then we can go to
Here for now. Here. I don't think so. Unity engine.ai.
To the point where we want to update our nav mesh, and all we need to do here is write surface dot build nav mesh, and that's it.
No, it's not. Let's go back to here. Jeez. Width, height. That is good to know. It's just this side again. Okay. Oh boy, I'm gonna ask ChatGPT for this because I don't care. To use the okay. Let me even explain this. So tutorial. It's saying. I mean, yeah, I can try it. Okay. Why is this so hard? Okay. Okay. That would be great to know. What can I do with this? What's this here? Let's take this like over here instead. Yeah. This is not much help. I'm just gonna make it its be your own. Yeah. Please read more, remove. Okay. I'm just gonna go here. Gonna go like bam. Okay, done it. Library. Gonna go to where is assets and go to paste. I'm gonna save. I'm gonna go here. For cleaning things, I'm gonna check project assets. Yay! No, that's not an issue. NavMeshSurface.cs. Then editor script. That's cool. Okay, this is like this is gonna actually take me to the right link. It is. Okay, I'm gonna be honest, I did not know how to do GitHub very well at all. I know that's like, oh, there's something there. I don't know anything. Started, tell myself 5.6 newer. Oh, I think I know this. Like, how do I download it? See, and this is why ChatGPT is great, because I would not have been able to find out how to do this by Googling. I had to go to a whole separate GitHub. Main assets, Nav Mesh components. I'm just gonna copy this. I'm gonna quit this. I'm gonna go to save this. Oh, where's the navigation thingy? Okay. All these, let's add, this, yeah, yay! Let's do the, it's baked. Source mesh cylinder does not allow read access. Okay. Cylinder mesh assets in the product window. Project. No, I'm not going to do that. I wonder what this cylinder is. Like, hmm. Okay. Yeah, I can do this. One. Okay. And then what's gonna be annoying is that this is gonna be ignore that. Yeah. Because these are where the cylinders are. Let's go to the door object. Key. Ignore that. Key shop. I already got the shop guy. Go to this guy. Should be it. Seems to be everything. Alrighty. This. Okay. I never asked me to do ignore nav mesh. That's the issue. Time is it? It's 12:30ish. Here's the plane. Let's actually do the thingy. Ooh. Okay. Make the humanoid. So we got a humanoid. These sauces make 2 priorities. Can change the thingy, right? I still don't know why that happens. Oh yeah, look at it. That's exciting. Yeah. So yeah, this is very cool, and yeah, and why is this connected here, but this isn't connected there? Like, I use the wait, let's get back to agent, because Xavier's because we can like this is a falling down thing, right? No, you really able to say, oh, I just died, yeah, I don't really know what to be changing, but yeah, maybe the drop down would be better. This seems like annoyingly finicky. Alrighty. What was I doing? I did. Sorry, I took a pause for a moment there. It is time for me to go to bed. It is late. Not really, but we're working on it, so yeah. We assign this and this non-admin aspects. Okay, so yeah, there's a lot of work still left to do, but a lot of progress. I need to figure out how to make it go up. We like jump down ledges and jump across things, but we'll figure it out. Thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Bye bye.